want to welcome you all, and would you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and we know that's the Dartmouth High School Band. They're really great. Could I have our chaplain up, Kevin Lee? Kevin will do the opening prayer.
Good morning. Please join me as we pause this moment in prayer. Dear gracious and ever-present God, we gather here this morning on the Sabbath and on Flag Day to remember. We remember with an enormous sense of loss still in our hearts for all our brothers and sisters who never returned from the fields of war and conflict within our lifetime. We remember that the miracle of life and being in community with one another continues to be your gift to us, O Lord, and we pray that the flag that symbolizes the ideals of our nation waves by the splendor of your grace. Hold us as we especially remember and honor today with gratitude one who answered the call to arms and yet returned by your will to be yet among us. May his courage and presence guide us toward right action always. Your kingdom on earth, still beyond reach, continues to be the world we strive for, dear Lord. Help us as we pray to be one day a nation and a world that can live in the virtue that takes away the occasion for all wars and conflict, where we might know and participate fully as one people in peace everlasting. Humbly and by your grace we remain, precious Lord. Amen.
Thank you, and be seated. Our honored guest, whom we're proud to have among us today, is a person that, to the veterans and the ex-military people of all services, it needs no introduction, but we will have him up for a little talk later on, and just like at this time to introduce Colonel Lewis L. Millett. Colonel, would you stand up? Thank you. Be seated. On behalf of the many people who worked to put this program together and bring Colonel Millett here today for this occasion, I say thank you. There were many people involved. We had a committee that met weekly. Changes were made during this period of time. A lot of people donated time. A lot of people donated money, and we certainly think it was all worthwhile. As far as who will be here today, we'll have to play this as we go along because some people were coming from the Boston area, and due to the weather, they may not be here. Of course, looking on the bright side, if this was could have been snow, we would have had about 7 or 8 feet of snow today. So that's a plus for us. But we do have a good turnout here. We had Colonel Millett at the Hawthorne Country Club for a get-together on Friday night. That was excellent. Everyone enjoyed themselves very much. In the front row here, we have a lot of the class of 1940 Dartmouth High School who were classmates of Colonel Millett, and I understand they had a great time with him yesterday, reminiscing over the old times from way back when. We also have some honored guests here from his Wolfhound Division in Korea, the 27th Infantry, Company E, and that's a few years ago too. We did have a Medal of Honor recipient from the Boston area, the Commissioner of Veterans Services, Tom Hudner, who's a resident of Fall River. He couldn't be here today. Something came up at the last minute, so that he did send his regards and recall the time that both he and Colonel Millett were parade marshals in 1952, I believe, in the Tournament of Roses parade. 3 years ago, through a lot of work by all the townspeople, our Dartmouth High School band participated in that. That was a great event for them. But we do thank all for coming. I do have some people to announce here, and we do have some presentations for Colonel Millett. And I think at the time we had a representative due in from Congressman McGovern's office, and I believe he may be in the back here. Is Patrick Norton? Would you come forward, Patrick? I can't see you, but I see the hand waving. Congressman McGovern has been a staunch supporter of veterans' rights. We've had a lot of good things happen through his office. It's been a pleasure to work with him. I guess you could read the citation or whatever if you want to come up here. Okay.
I'd just like to say it's a pleasure and honor to be here today with the residents of Dartmouth celebrating Colonel Millett's return to Dartmouth. The officials in Dartmouth and the residents ought to be very proud of themselves for organizing this event. It's a great tribute. And Veterans Agent Jim Collins and his dedicated staff and volunteers who organized this day are to be commended. I have a congressional, on behalf of Congressman McGovern, this is my son Benjamin, by the way. I have a certificate of special congressional recognition presented to Colonel Lewis Lee Millett in recognition of outstanding and valuable service to the community. Congratulations, Colonel.
Thank you, Patrick, and as you can see, he has a future veteran there. In the planning stages for this event, there were just so many people involved. I would like to just acknowledge them and appreciate the fact that they worked hard on this to get everything coordinated. It was daily changes made in it. We had a lot of help from the business community with donations. Citizens donated money to the cost of the event. Our committee consisted of Robert Miller and Richard Peralt, who were chairman, Michael Gagne, our executive administrator. We had Ruby Goldstein, Milt Francis from the Legion, and Rick Corvello from the American Legion, myself representing the VFW. The VFW and Legion both contributed, did a lot to get this together, and we do thank all of you. Michael Gagne was over here, I think, about 6:30 this morning, trying to make sure that we did get it inside in case of the weather, and it looks like it's almost sunny, but if you step on the ground out there, you're going to sink in. So we do appreciate all that's done by everyone. In continuing that, if there's one person in here that is deserving of some award for going above and beyond, and time and time again, she juggled about 20 things at the same time, and they all came out right. And in addition to all that, the lady I'm referring to, Doris Copley from the Selectman's Office, and her mother still found time to make and sell the dolls to raise money. Doris, we thank you, and would you stand up, please? And Senator Montigny, of course, this is a bad time to do all this because the graduations, the children of our senators that are graduating from school today, and in addition to Flag Day, this is the birthday of the Army. I don't know what year it was, but today's their birthday, so happy birthday to all you Army veterans out there. This comes from the Massachusetts Senate. It's from Tom Birmingham, Ed O'Neill, and Mark Montigny's office. It's an official citation. Be it known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to Colonel Lewis Lee Millett in recognition of your personal sacrifices and unselfish dedication to our country. Your outstanding contributions to the armed services make you our hometown hero, and be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends best wishes for continued success, that this citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate and attested to, and a copy hereof transmitted by the Clerk of the Senate. And it is signed by those gentlemen, and they're proud to present this to you, Colonel Millett. And from the United States Senate in Washington, John F. Kerry, the senator, his office, he sends a letter addressed to Colonel Lewis Lee Millett. It is my honor to join you on this momentous occasion celebrating Colonel Lewis Lee Millett, a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. Patriotism has long been the cornerstone of this great country. Colonel Millett exemplified patriotism by his dedicated and faithful service in the military. I would personally like to thank Colonel Millett and all of the veterans who valiantly served and sacrificed for this great country. There is no contribution more important than that which benefits the whole country. A Congressional Medal of Honor is certainly an award that merits the utmost respect, and one that Colonel Millett has deservingly been awarded. I am sure your friends, family, and all the residents of your hometown Dartmouth are grateful for your years of service, and I join them in saluting you. I wish you the best in the coming years, and that's signed by Senator Kerry. At this time, I'd like to ask Representative Quinn from Dartmouth to come up and say a few words.
Thank you very much. And I often speak at functions and retirement parties, but I must say that I'm truly honored to be here, to be part of this day, to honor a true American hero and a son of Dartmouth. I think it's very appropriate that we have this celebration on Flag Day, but I think it's more appropriate that we have it 3 weeks after Memorial Day, the day that we've set aside to honor the veterans and honor the people that sacrificed their lives as well as their family to go forth and protect this great country we have. We stand here today in 1998, living in the greatest country of the world, and the greatest democracy in the world, and it's only that because of people like Colonel Millett and other veterans that are here today. I have an official citation from the Massachusetts House of Representatives, which I will present to Colonel Millett, which says, "Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Colonel Lewis Millett in recognition of your hometown celebration, honoring your dedicated service to your country in receiving the Congressional Medal of Honor. I'm sure it pales in comparison to the Congressional Medal of Honor, but it's a token of our appreciation from the state for what you've done for our country and for our town. And in closing, I think it's important that we reflect on the environment out there regarding veterans. I think as we look towards some of the individuals in Congress that are trying to balance the budget on the back of veterans and veterans programs, we look to other people that forget the great dedication and the great service to our country in World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And I think it's really wonderful to pause and reflect on events like today and others that occur across the country to just truly remember what the veterans have done for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Quinn. We appreciate those kind words. And now I would like to just make mention of the fact that the band from Newport, the brass quintet, is the United States Navy Band from Newport, Rhode Island. They've spent some considerable time and coming over to do some numbers for us later on in the program. And we also have the color guard furnished by the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Dartmouth, Post 9059, along with the Ladies Auxiliaries. There are different veterans groups represented here. I see some gentlemen out there from the Special Forces groups that have came over from Rhode Island to join us. So we do appreciate this. It's quite a momentous event for us all. The Medal of Honor, as all the military people here, I believe, would recognize, is the highest award that can be given to a serviceman or woman. And usually it involves risk of life and many times loss of life. At the time Colonel Millett was awarded his Medal of Honor, it was for an action that took place on 7 February 1951 in Korea. At that time he was the Company E commander. The previous Company E commander, Captain Desiderio, had received the Medal of Honor also posthumously. He was dead. He was killed during that time. And Colonel Millett took over the outfit shortly after that, Company E. And obviously it was a tough outfit and he kept it going. He was awarded the medal for an action that occurred on 7 February 1951. And it's very, at that time, I should say that I believe there were 27 Medal of Honor medals that were issued to men during the Korean War, and only 7 were alive to receive them, so most of them were died and got their medal posthumously. At this time, I'd like to introduce a gentleman from our community, a town resident. He really is well known throughout the southeast area as well as the Boston area for the great job he's done as the director of the Veterans Transition House in New Bedford. I say house, but really there was one that started, then they had a graduate house, and Friday night I'm informed that they now have a third house under agreement. So these gentlemen have done a great job at the board of directors there, and they're under the direction of Captain Fred Purrington, who's the president. He is also a retired Navy pilot, was shot down during the Vietnam War, and spent in excess of 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton. And Fred, it's a great honor to have you here, and we'd like to have you come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, Colonel Millett. You know, we live in a world today that's full of spin doctors and handlers And today I'd like to pay a little bit of a spin doctor because I'd like to put a spin on this ceremony. And it's this. We cannot honor Colonel Millett. He honors us with his presence here today. Colonel Millett does not need a statue or a monument to his life. We need a statue and a monument to his life. Colonel Millett needs no validation. He is the validation of the American way of life. The further one travels from home, the larger the home area becomes. And one day, as many here may have, find themselves 10,000 miles from home on the ground in a rice paddy in hostile territory. And if you are then asked where home is the States. If you are then asked who you are an American. And Colonel Millett is an American. He belongs to this nation now. He is the recipient of the nation's highest honor. There are only 163 living recipients of the Medal of Honor alive today. Now, when I think back to 1951, I was a student down on Tucker Road at Gidley School. I lived right up the street here on Slocum Road. And I can recall reading and having my parents speak of then Captain Millett. And all I knew is that he was a soldier from my home who had distinguished himself above and beyond all other soldiers in Korea. My parents spoke of him with great reverence. They held him in the highest esteem, and I assumed the pride of being from the same town as Colonel Millett. As I say, today we live in a strange world. We live in a world which it seems that we sometimes feel diminished by someone else's success. We live in a time when we seem to relish if someone of stature, be it a businessman, be it a politician, be it anyone, is taken down, is diminished. In some way, there's a strange feeling that that should make me feel good. I turn on the TV and I'm confronted with Johnny Cochran, Greta Van Susteren, Marcia Clark, explaining to me how I should see what I see with my own two eyes. Now, I have a family, and incidentally, it was 25 years ago today that my wife and I got married, and it was only a few weeks prior to that that I had the honor to be in the presence of Colonel Millett when he welcomed me back to Dartmouth, and we stood around the piano and sang songs together. Now, about a week ago, I spoke to my youngest son, of which now I have 3 children. They're sitting over there with my wife, Maggie, Garrett, Kendall's in the band right here. and my youngest son, Mark. And I was speaking to Mark, and I told him that probably sometime in the next month, I would have the opportunity to introduce him to a high official in Washington in public office. And he said to me, he said, well, Dad, doesn't he walk and talk like everybody else? And yes, he does walk and talk like everybody else. But for some reason, I want him to hold him in a little higher esteem. I want him to have something feeling. I want him to have some confidence and have some feeling of credibility in leaders, just as I had. Now, a statue has been placed out here as testimony to the life of Colonel Lewis Millett. Colonel Millett, if you look at his service record, is the consummate soldier. He knew how to take orders as well as give orders. He knew how to be trained as well as trained. And when it came time, he knew how to lead as well as follow. Now today we graduate students from Dartmouth High, just like Colonel Millett graduated in the 1940s, and I graduated in 1958, and so many others did. And I hope in the future, when my son and his friends and my daughter walk out that door of the high school here and they walk by that statue, some way the real meaning of that can come through to them and what it means and what life it represents. Because when we're looking for credibility today, that statue is made of granite. And that's as solid as the man that sits here in the front row, Colonel Millett. And once again, Colonel, it is my honor to be in your presence. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Perrington. I know through your direction and guidance in the transition house, many of these veterans that have gone through there, and as a veterans agent, I deal with them weekly, daily, and they've really turned their lives around, and all of them, I'm sure, speaking on their behalf, I say we all owe you a great debt for your continued service to the community of veterans. Thank you again. At this time, I'd like to ask one of our selectmen to come up and say a few words, Richard Peralt. We do appreciate the support that all the selectmen have given to us, Leonard Gonzalez, Richard, Bob Miller, Enid Silva, and I believe Kenneth Vinson, who's controlling the traffic out there. Now he's down the end of the hall. Thank you again for all your support in this project.
Thank you, Jim. Veterans, I'd like to, first of all, give a special thanks to one of our selectmen, Selectman Robert Miller, who brought the issue of Colonel Millett coming back to our community to the board. I really would like him to stand up and take a bow because he has done a lot for this community. Again, the committees that have worked on this have gotten praise, and I want to give them some more praise because I think they've done an excellent job. Being a veteran, being from a family that there were 4 veterans, my father in Pearl Harbor, and my 2 other brothers were also veterans. One has passed away since. This is a proud thing for me. Matter of fact, when I walked in, someone said, why aren't you wearing your veteran's hat? Well, I didn't wear my veteran's hat because I didn't want to take the glory of this day away from the rest of the veterans. I don't want to be recognized as a politician or just a standout veteran, because there's only one veteran in this room that I will bow to at this point, and that's Colonel Millett. He has proven a lot to this country, but there's one thing that we can't forget about. It's for those people that stayed home to help our veterans, the wives and the children, that supported them 100%. And as you see here this evening, or this afternoon, here I am every evening, you see the auxiliary, the ladies auxiliary. You'd be surprised how much they do. They work very hard for our veterans. And I think it's time for the veterans to go out and start pushing a little harder, because we do lose some support in this world. And it's a shame, because we are the ones, you people are the ones that made it safe for everybody in this community and in this country. I want to thank you.
Thank you, Selectman Peralt, and I'd also like to recognize Colonel Millett's traveling companion, who is his son, Louis Lee Millett, Jr. He's also a decorated veteran and is here with the Colonel. Now, we did have a gentleman from Braintree that's recipient of the Medal of Honor that was due here, and I can only assume that with the water conditions and the roads up that way, that he didn't make it. He is Charles McGilvery. He was a decorated veteran of the Second World War and a medal recipient. He was one of, there are actually 3 residents of Massachusetts who are recipients of the Medal of Honor. That's Commissioner of Veterans Services Thomas Hudner, Charles McGilvery, and a George Street. Mr. Street's wife was ill, and he's at the hospital with her. We knew he wouldn't be here. And at this time, we would like to do the unveiling of the monument, which we videotaped earlier, and rather than go out in the damp and the wet out there, we'll show it on the screen here. We'll have the screen lowered and show that. And we would ask Milton Francis, the commander or the senior vice commander of the American Legion, Post 307, to come up during this period. Colonel Millett, by the way, is a life member of Dartmouth, Post 307 of the American Legion. Right.
This morning, we have had the great pleasure of being introduced to 2 Milletts, one a little younger than the other, but very impressive people. As John is concerned, a very talented person in his own way, and of course, Colonel Millett, as you've heard now a number of times, a very impressive person in battle or in giving his troops a lot of courage to gain the ground they necessarily needed. And in our unveiling, I will bring up the point that the class of 1940 will never forget this day, and also post 307 American Legion, also a post 9095 VFW, and many other people that are here in the audience. This occasion will last a lifetime and then some. And I think that also our youngsters should be educated a little bit about war and about peace. And I remember listening to a retired admiral on a Washington Day's breakfast. And he said some words that I can't forget. He said that we look for peace where there is no peace. And then he went on to point out, even though at that moment we seemed to be having peace, but around the world we still had so many areas that were warring against themselves, actually, nation against their citizens. And also mentioned were, I think, I don't know now if it was Abraham Lincoln that said this one, there was never a good war and never a bad peace. Thank you very much for coming this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Francis, for those kind words. And prior to having our guest of honor come up, I would just like to say a few words here that are some of my thoughts and some of the other thoughts of people that have come before us and still here. At the time that Colonel, who was then a captain, Millett, was awarded the Medal of Honor, this was presented to him in August, I believe, 1951. And I'd like to read the citation that accompanied the award. I believe he was presented the medal by President Truman. And the citation reads as follows: Captain Millett, Company E, distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty in action. While personally leading his company in attack against a strongly held position, he noted that the 1st platoon was pinned down by small arms, automatic and anti-tank fire. Captain Millett ordered the 3rd platoon forward, placed himself at the head of both platoons, and with fixed bayonet led the assault up the fire-swept hill. In the fierce charge, Captain Millett bayoneted 2 enemy soldiers and boldly continued on, throwing grenades, clubbing and bayoneting the enemy, while urging his men forward by shouting encouragement. Despite vicious opposing fire, the whirlwind hand-to-hand assault carried to the crest of the hill. His dauntless leadership and personal courage so inspired his men that they stormed into the hostile position and used their bayonets with such lethal effect that the enemy fled in wild disorder. During this fierce onslaught, Captain Millett was wounded by grenades but refused evacuation until the objective was taken and firmly secured. The superb leadership, conspicuous courage, and consummate devotion to duty demonstrated by Captain Millett were directly responsible for the successful accomplishment of a hazardous mission and reflect the highest credit on himself and the heroic traditions of the military service. That was the citation that accompanied that. Later on, a retired Army historian, he was General S.L.A. Marshall, called this action the greatest bayonet charge since the Civil War, the Cold Harbor Battle of the Civil War. So it was quite a feat. And again, we're deeply honored by your presence here, and we'd like to have you up to say a few words to the folks here now. Colonel Millett.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wish you were in my shoes. I really don't know what to say. I need to thank a lot of people, thousands of people really, for being here, for being a free American. Thank my great-great-great-great-grandfather that came over here from Surrey, England, to the Massachusetts Bay Colony because he wanted to be free, and died at the Brookfield Indian Massacre in 1675. Navy, John Millett of the Gloucester Regiment, Merrill's company, that took Washington out of New York City when the British attacked and took him to New Jersey, and later took him across the Delaware to attack the Hessians at Trenton. My great-grandfathers, who fought in the Civil War to liberate the slaves and to ensure that this was one country under God. My wife, 5 times she visited Vietnam, one time bringing food over because the soldiers complained that they didn't have any Mexican food. We're about to land in the airfield at Khartoum, which is being shelled. The pilot turned to me and said, "Colonel, do you want to land?" I turned to my wife, "Honey, do you want to land? I can't feed the troops if we don't land." My son, as a civilian, went on patrol with me to try to convince a battalion of the enemy to come over to our side. He was a civilian in Vietnam. Of course, there are a lot of people who evaded service over there. Some went to Canada, like I did. I deserted the Army and went to Canada, but I joined the Canadian Army because they were killing people in concentration camps in Europe. And I can recall that 3rd grade teacher in Holliston, Mass, who opened the Bible every morning and read verses from it. She was, can't remember her name, Italian name. I don't know what Bible she read, but I know when she talked about being your brother's keeper, I eventually found out the true meaning of that. All the friends who were here, classmates. We had an unbelievable class, really. Brought up during the Depression, knew the meaning of work, and courage, and loyalty. You know, that's where duty, honor, country came from. This institution, my classmates, my forefathers. And you come to realize after you fought in 9 countries and 3 continents and 3 wars, that we truly are blessed because of what preceded us. I would not be here today if when I fixed bayonets in charge, 100 men had not gone with me. every single man of that company. Probably thought I was crazy, but they went and did the job. I'm very proud to be the honorary colonel of the 27th Infantry Regiment, Schofield Barracks. And I'm very proud of the 27th Wolfhounds who are here today. Would you please stand? There's so many people I could think of sitting right in this audience I could thank for being friends, being comrades. But I stand here because many people died in battle that I saw die. And that's one reason as a soldier I did not try to make too close a friend. But in Italy during the war, I knew there was a man in the rifle company that I was supporting as an artilleryman. That came from my hometown. I'd met him once, and in this particular day, as I climbed up this mountain and talked to the company commander, I said, I want to be where young Martha is. We used to call him Little Chick, Gilbert Martha. And he said, well, I just made lieutenant. He said, Lieutenant, you can't go out there. He's out on an outpost, virtually surrounded by the Germans, and you can't get there without getting shot. So I stood on a ridgeline to the rear of his outpost. We were fighting the SS paratroopers, really tough soldiers. They sent wave after wave of soldiers into that, trying to take that house, big stone farmhouse sitting on top of this hill. I fired literally hundreds and hundreds of artillery rounds, killing many of them, wounding others. They'd throw their blankets on the ground, put the wounded on, drag them off, and then assault again. We couldn't save Gilbert Martha. There's a street or a square named after him here. That really isn't enough. Every morning we should thank God that we had people serving like Gilbert Martha. I can recall a young man named Les Collette when I transferred from the artillery to take over Desiderio's company. 3 other artillerymen transferred with me, volunteered to be the dirtiest business in the world, a grunt, an infantryman in the line. Les Collette was one of them. Red-headed young man, machine gunner. When I ordered the assault against the Germans and against the North Koreans on 7th February, he came off a hill, it was full of ice, hit the ground, tumbling over, got up, picked up his machine gun and charged across the rice paddy, only be hit by a hail of enemy machine gun fire. Weapon destroyed. He drew his pistol and charged on up the hill and took an entrenchment, killing the enemy there. But he died. A sniper off in the flank shot him through the head. Those are some reasons that I can stand here today. Sad fact is, many people don't respect the service of others. I have been the honorary colonel now since 1985. Chief Staff of the Army just recently sent me over to Germany to say hello and farewell to troops going to and from Bosnia. Just prior to that, I had visited with my own 2nd Battalion, the 27th, in the Sinai. watching them protect the peace between Israel and Egypt. And on February 6th of this year, I went to Korea to commemorate those who died taking Hill 180. And there I had the opportunity to talk to many young people serving our country, all under the gun, because Korea is a touchy, dangerous place. Met 3 ladies who flew U-2 aircraft, female pilots of the Air Force. Met many young men who are dedicated in serving, but the sad fact is, once they come home, they quit because they see no future. And our Army and Navy and Air Force are being disseminated, not by enemy, but by our own politicians here at home, who take money out of Veterans Affairs to build roads. This is criminal. And I hate to talk about politics like that, but you know, freedom is a political thing. And we have the greatest country in the world, and I see it being eroded by those who would line their pockets with gold and sell our freedom to the highest bidder. I did not fight for this. My youngest son, who volunteered to go to the Sinai, did not die for this. I have fought in 3 wars. I never expected to see my youngest son in peacetime die on a mission for the United States. I wrote this old soldier's prayer right after his funeral. I have fought when many feared to serve. I have gone where others failed to go. I have lost friends in war and strife who valued duty more than love of life. I have shared the comradeship of pain. I've searched the lands for men that we have lost. I have sons who served this land of liberty who would fight to see that other stricken lands are free. I've seen the weak forsake humanity. I've heard the traitors praise our enemy. I've seen challenged men become ever bolder. I've seen the duty, the honor, the sacrifice of the soldier. Now, I understand the meaning of our lives. The loss of comrades not so very long ago. So to you who answered duty's siren call, may God bless you, my son. May God bless you all.
Thank you, Colonel Millett. At this time, our services are pretty much concluded. We'd like to thank these ladies down in front, the Dartmouth VFW Post 9059 Color Guard, who also prepared the sandwiches and the refreshments that we'll have outside. I think the Color Guard here the VFW Post Color Guard for their participation, the Navy Brass Quintet under Petty Officer Freeman. Thanks for coming. And I just want to say personally that I don't think I would ever forget this day. It's been a tremendous thrill for me to be a part of this, and the committees that met and the challenges that we overcame, and we will remember this all our lives. And we thank you, Colonel Millett, and enjoy yourselves. Thanks to everyone for coming. The refreshments are out front. They're sandwiches, coffee, soft drinks. Anyone care to participate, you're more than welcome. Thank you again. Okay. Are we going to have something from the brass quintet? Okay.
Hello there, I'm Ralph Schmarzo, your host, speaking to you today from DCTV's Channel 18 on behalf of the Dartmouth Wanderers, a group of senior citizens. We videotape people, places, and prominent personalities about town. We work with the students at Dartmouth High School's television studio, producing videos of interest to senior citizens and others who watch Dartmouth Community TV. Films are shown weekly on Channel 18. We're not only learning new and exciting things, we meet a need in the community and enjoy every minute of producing a film. Excerpts from some of our videos are being shown in case you missed them. Today, we're reaching out to you as a senior citizen and Dartmouth resident, and one who rebels at the thought of becoming a couch potato. If you have writing skills, organizing skills, hands-on technical abilities, interviewing skills, or just the time to work with others, we want you. Think about it. We'd love to have you join us exploring the world of cable TV. You can expand your horizons and learn new skills while putting Dartmouth's best face on TV. Please, don't wait. Walking and jogging is fine for improving muscle tone, but joining Dartmouth Wanderings is a sure way to boost your self-esteem and expand your personal accomplishments. This is your invitation to join us. We are all amateurs. The Dartmouth Wanderers meets once a month at the Dartmouth Council on Aging Senior Center, 628 Dartmouth Street. Norma Vaz, director, or someone else will take your call at 999-4717 between the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday. Please give us a call.